When it comes to accountability, the president needs to understand that his actions were the problem.
The mob was fed lies. They were provoked by the president.
You know, when you hear Senator Graham, you really got to think about whether or not he's okay. He said that January 7th. Now he's saying it was Nancy Pelosi. I mean, seriously, I hope you are well, Senator, because you don't sound it. Now, the defense team wants you to forget everything you just heard and argue that no matter what he said, Trump didn't want a riot. Then they have to answer this question. If he didn't want it, why, when he knew it was happening, did he do so little to stop it? Defense is going to have to try to explain that away. We have one of the few legal minds who have not only defended a president in an impeachment trial, but who defended Mr. Trump last year. Robert Ray, welcome back to Primetime. Good to see you, sir.
Nice to be with you.
What do you expect as the biggest hammer they can swing?
I think the thing that should be emphasized and repeated until the point is carried is that, it's not just about a link with the activity that transpired at the Capitol. It also has to be under Brandenburg versus Ohio, that Donald Trump made a direct call for lawless or violent action. And I don't think, and this is what I thought at the beginning of the trial, I don't think that House managers were able to prove that. I don't think any amount of video evidence is going to prove that. And I think the defense should focus in that area. Now, I will say also that you start with the fact that you have 44 senators who believe that, at least based upon their most recent vote, that this trial is unconstitutional. And so, I mean, you have to be careful about, not snatching defeat from the jaws of victory here. You start with that. I mean, there's no reason to think that if they thought it was unconstitutional then, that they're going to vote for conviction now. It's not as if once that motion is decided that the slate is wiped clean. So I think you start with both of those things, and I imagine that that's a big part of what the defense will be tomorrow.
I'll take the points on as a matter of law for a second, but just one human moment step to the side. Aren't you worried? We know they're going to acquit him in all likelihood because this is just politics.
Right.
But aren't you worried that these extremists are going to take that as a win? And we know they're doing it online. We know what happened here, Robert.
Chris, I am worried. I do think that, the new thing that I learned, everybody comes at this, I try to keep an open mind as well. What the timeline between approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon and 4:30 in the afternoon on January 6th is profoundly troubling to me. I do think it was a dereliction of duty. I don't happen to think that that constitutes an impeachable offense, because I don't think that that constitutes a high crime or misdemeanor.
You don't think allowing members of Congress to be hunted by people who are acting in your name is an impeachable offense? If that's not an abuse of authority, what is?
Well, it has to be a high crime or misdemeanor. What crime was committed in failing to act?
You were letting people try to kill members of Congress when all you had to do was say stop, and you didn't.
It's reprehensible, and I think what I would like to have seen here, I hope that it can happen. I do think there would be bipartisan support for a censure. I don't think he's going to be convicted. I don't think the votes are there. But yes, am I troubled by what happened after what was charged in the impeachment article, which is the statement, fight like hell or you won't have your country anymore? Those words, in my judgment, do not constitute the crime of incitement to insurrection. And I think on that basis, he cannot be convicted. I understand it's not a court in a criminal proceeding, but I do think you still have to show an impeachable offense. And I think the managers have failed to do that.
Right. I don't agree. Look, as we both know, we might as well tell the audience, I consult with Brother Ray. I respect him as a superior legal mind for sure. But
I respect you have a different opinion, and it's not like you're alone. I mean,
I don't think Brandenburg applies. We're not in a court of law. As President Gerald Ford said, an impeachable offense is anything Congress says it is. And I believe his high crimes and misdemeanors was a common law historical standard that they went so that it wouldn't be random. And he obviously said the things that made these rioters want to go and riot because they told us he did, Robert. They tell you what you need to know. The link is the people who did it say they did it because of him, and they still support him. They're not his enemies.
Well, subliminal messages, or as somebody characterized it today, not to be flippant about it, it's like we got a signal from the Batcave, to go riot from the president. And it is partially relevant to the president's intent. And I do think that context is important, but it doesn't change the fact that the first factor under the Brandenburg test could not be satisfied. Something that, by the way, Noah Feldman does agree with. He still thinks that it's an impeachable offense, but he acknowledges that you wouldn't be able to prove incitement to insurrection against the president.
It's a different forum, and I still think the harder question is the one that you brought up earlier. If he didn't want it, why didn't he stop it? You say that's a dereliction of duty. I say that's being kind. This is what we call in the law, what guys like you teach guys like me, something called scienter, which is malice aforethought. When you know that they are busting up the Capitol and the only calls you make are to ask guys to slow down the process on the inside, you are looking to advantage from a riot and you don't give a damn what happens to the people inside. How do you get past that if you're sitting in one of those chairs as a senator?
I don't think that the president intended that people be killed or hurt or maimed in this incident. I mean, reasonable people can disagree about that. One of the dangers of political rhetoric is that we've seen on both sides, it seems to me, over the course of the past year, what can happen when this gets out of control.
Who's ever said anything like what Trump has been saying? Who do you make his equal on the left?
Fine, Chris. Let's accept that as true for the moment. The fact of the matter is that the country needs to lower the temperature. I would like to think that we can move forward from here somehow toward a better place where our better instincts control. I do think it's a problem at this impeachment trial, frankly and honestly, which is why I think he will be acquitted, to displace the will of 75 million people who voted for him by saying that the Congress, with 50 United States senators on the Democratic side, plus what would be required, 17 Republican senators, to prevent and override what the country may decide to do 4 years hence, and whether or not Donald Trump is a candidate. I frankly...
Well, first of all, hold on a second. Robert, hold on a second. Fair point until you enter an unknown where there is a known. The polls show you still have 78% of your people in your party that believe a lot of scary things. But his numbers have dropped precipitously. His numbers with those people who voted for him are not where they were before because he did this after they voted for him. So why make them the scapegoat? He showed after they voted for him that he was willing to incite a riot, and they reject it. 56% of the people in this country say he should be convicted for this. Well, so you're not preserving their will, you're perverting their will.
I don't think so. I think I have great faith in democracy and for the people to decide that question. I don't think 67 United States senators, with regard to a former public official, should be making that judgment.
And do you balance that? And then I'll let you go. Do you balance that with, if you acquit him and he celebrates and he tells all his people, we beat them again, they'll never stop us, it's us versus them, and we're coming back, baby. And then a bunch of those guys grab me or come after my family or go after another state house and feel emboldened, and they do it in open and they say, here we come, it's us versus them. Was that worth it? Is that a price we're worth paying right now?
Two things I will say about that. Living on the edge of two impeachments in one term as president is no way to conduct a presidency. And the second thing is, to get to your point, that's why I think a censure is appropriate. Whether it
your guys won't do it.
Well, whether it can be done as part of this impeachment.
Did I lose Robert or did you lose Robert? Can you hear me, Robert? That's right. We'll let him go. Robert Ray, I appreciate you. I can't hear you anymore, but you'll never be silenced on this show. You're always welcome here. If you can hear me, thank you for being on the show. If not, I'll call you after and I'll thank you in person. Oh, there he is. Can we still hear him?
Thanks very much, Chris.
All right, Robert Ray, be well, and thank you for your perspective. We'll watch it together tomorrow. We'll see what happens. All right. Now, one of the things they're doing that's already smart on the defense side, keeping it short. Do not, as Robert Ray said, snatch defeat out of the mouth of victory. Why? It's rigged. It's rigged. They're doing this on the basis of votes. I mean, rigged. They're doing it on the basis of votes, and they already broke their oath. They're not impartial. They're helping his side win. They'll win if they just don't screw it up, or if Trump doesn't say something that causes another insurrection tomorrow or the next day. So this could be over in 2 days. But I argue it will be just beginning for the rest of us. So let's turn to someone with a front row seat to history for what we have going on behind the scenes. A member of the jury, next.